All right, guys. Bo, Shannon, thanks so much for being guest on Wicked Smart Golf today. Excited to talk about the mental game, getting in the zone, and helping our listeners with the mental side of the game because, as you guys know, it plays a really, really big role in this crazy, awesome game that we love so much.
1,000%. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, thanks for having us. This will be exciting.
Yeah, thanks again. It's fun for me, having both of you guys on here. It's our first three-person interview, so I'm excited to go through it. I really like your guys' book. There's so much we can, take from it, and I'm excited to get into that. So before that, though, obviously love to learn about the guest and where you guys got started. So, Bo, you have a really interesting background, and I'd love for you to kind of start us off and share what got you to the point and how you and Shannon linked up and how we kind of got into the book, which we're going to go through today.
Awesome. Yeah. I think it's really interesting because, my story is kind of very similar to a lot of people that actually start early in the game. I started this game very young age of 5. Grandparents introduced it, and I was hooked from the beginning. My dream was to play on the PGA Tour, and I had a lot of success in junior golf. And unfortunately, when I got to high school, things kind of took a nosedive. And the reason for that is because I was literally trying that extra edge, and I was searching for the perfect swing, and I was living on Golf Channel Academy Live. I was reading all the magazines, and I'm doing everything that I thought was right on paper. And unfortunately, I got worse. And it got to a point where the senior year of high school, my thought process was, well, at the time, it's still true. You got to get to a D1 school in order to keep that dream of playing on the PGA Tour Live. You got to go and compete against the best, and that's how you do that. And at the time, the best I could have gotten was a D2 or maybe D3 school. So I had to make a decision. And the decision I made was to go to Columbia University, pursue PGA golf management, while at the same time learning under David Orr. Those of you that don't know who David Orr is, he is actually the world's best putting coach. Him and Phil Kenyon kind of like share that title. They're neck and neck. Phil's kind of more the European. David's kind of more to the American guys. And here's the interesting thing. He was also really good back then on full swing. He's still, in my opinion, one of the best in the world. Funny enough, side note, he's actually kind of out of retirement on the full swing. He's actually working with PGA Tour player Alex Smalley, which is kind of comical in and of itself. But anyways, I really thought that if I went and learned under him, I would actually still have an opportunity. Well, I actually got around him, fell in love with teaching the game. And so after school, I actually decided to go a different route and open my own golf school. I'm a type A type of personality. I literally want to help every single person that comes to me in person. And I was getting a lot of good success with our clients. I mean, we're averaging 4.7 strokes in 6 months.
That's incredible.
And, that's a little bit better than Golf Tech's average. So I kind of like to rub that into Nick Clearwater's face a little bit. He and I are good friends.
That's awesome.
But here's the thing. I still had some clients that were coming to me and they struggled with, well, a lot of people that are watching this right now probably struggle with, they were struggling with, why is it I get to this one hole and no matter what I do, I always hit it in the water, or I double cross it and I go way out of bounds the other opposite direction? Or is it, why did I always play really well on the front side and I blow up on the backside? Or vice versa. I play really poorly on the front side and I do great on the backside. And a lot of those things were kind of similar to my own struggles. So here I am as a coach struggling with a lot of the same issues that these clients are also struggling with. Because for me, my biggest issue was I would have a really, really good start and then things would come off the tracks. I'd be the type of guy that'd be like, man, I'm 3-4 under. This happened to me so many times. I'd be 3-4 under through 7 holes. And then I would be literally like daydreaming. Man, I can't wait to tell my grandparents. I can't wait to see their faces and how they're going to be smiling. Can't wait to tell my parents and how proud they're going to be of me. And, as soon as I have the thought, then it's a snap hook off the tee on the next shot. And then the train comes off the tracks. Well, here's the thing. In 2016, this all came to a head. I'll never forget it. It was in September. It was late in the evening. It was my last lesson. And I'm working with a guy that on paper, this guy should be shooting scores in the 70s. We went and tracked him with strokes gain data. From a ball striking standpoint, when he's practicing, he is hitting at the level of someone that would be a 3 or 4 handicap. But yet, when he goes and plays in these tournaments here in the Carolinas golf section, he was shooting routinely high 80s, low 90s.
So he was good on the range, though? It was just when he got to the course, that's when?
He was great on the range. Even when we do playing lessons, like he was doing pretty good on course management. That's a big piece. And I know that you do a great job actually getting to the core of that. But here's the thing, like he was doing all the right things. But the problem was when he got to tournaments, the pressure got to him and things would just literally come off the tracks. And we had an honest conversation that evening and we both agreed to part ways. And it was the final straw for me, because I had yet to personally overcome it my own game. And at this point, again, I'm a type A personality. I literally want to help every single person that comes to me. And that night, I was done. I quit the game. I walked away from my golf school, closed it down. I was sending out resumes literally that night to other job opportunities, and I went a different direction for 2 years. And now, some of you that are listening to this and watching this, you're probably learning, well, what in the world brought you in? Well, it's because I meet this guy right here 2 years later, Shannon Shuskey.
Yeah, so I'll kind of speak in, and then we'll let Bo kind of finish up with that question. And so my background, I played soccer in high school and college and semi-pro, and then I got into speed skating. I was national champion. I was record holder, and then I got into cycling and stuff. But so when I was speed skating, very similar to what Bo was talking about, as far as being on the range and not performing on the course. I was very similar because in soccer I was a pretty fast player. And the team that I skated for was like the who's who in the country. What do I mean by that is we had over 22 national champions on our team for their specific age group levels and stuff like that, pro, amateur, stuff. So whenever I line up on the starting line, I was probably about 27, 28 years old, but yet I'm racing all these younger guys who are fast and stuff like that. I'd always get last off the starting line. But yet when we would put shoes on, again, I would beat them hands down from running starts. So I knew that there was a disconnect. So I started reading books and started diving into the mental game because I knew that was what was going on. And then I figured out literally how to trick my body to get in the zone. And I started doing that. I started getting mental reps in over and over again. And literally within, I would say about not even 2 weeks, I started beating people on the team. And then at the end of the month, I was actually winning starts. And then by the end of I'd say month and a half or so, the meets that I was going to, I was winning starts at meets again. And then I got even faster and faster and then became national champion and stuff like that. But the reason why I was saying that was because I was triggering my body to get in the zone over and over again. And it happened that quick. That was a disconnect. Just like everybody that they go on the range and they start doing it and then they go there. So then what happened is I'm over the ministry team at my church and I met Bo. And I just wanted to get to know him. So we went out to eat dinner one night and I'm talking to him. So the whole reason for me doing that is to get to know him. And that's not even how the conversation went. Well, I started talking about, the getting mental rep, what that is, the whole concept of what we call now psychoneuromuscular training, how to trigger the body to get in the zone. And he was like, there's no way. I don't believe you. And he kept going. And then what I love is he was leaving and laughing. He goes, I'm going to prove you wrong. Now I'll kind of let Bo pick up on the rest of that.
Yeah, one thing too, even before getting into that, so you basically are saying you found a way to really access the zone and really get into a flow state in your sport, and you were basically, I know Bo taking a few years off of golf, so he's probably not in the golf mind even right now, but he's probably still in the back of his head a little bit. So, but were you skeptical then of this? Because I mean, I'm sure a lot of guys, a lot of people are just very skeptical of the mental game. Before Dr. Bob Rotella, the mental game was, something barely even talked about. Like people didn't want to know you were going to a shrink or something. It was a very big deal. And now you got guys on Full Swing, and they got their sports psychologist on there, right? And it's really good to see for our industry. But Bo, what was your take on it? Were you like, this sounds too good to be true? Or, I don't believe this? Because I know there's a lot of people that are just very skeptical of how different mental training works.
I will say the very thing that a lot of people that are listening and watching this right now are thinking or saying, Shannon, you're full of crap. And I literally said that. And when I heard that he was able to let me give you some context, guys. The reason why I asked first why he was able to have this success was when I said, okay, that's really cool. What do you do for work or whatever? And he was like, well, formerly I was the national, team manager for U.S. national inline speed skating team. I was like, okay, that's really cool. What was your record? And he said, I coached 142 national champions, 8 world champions, and 2 Olympic medalists. I'm like, good Lord, that's pretty impressive. What did you do? And then he goes, well, I was able to get my speed skate restrictor buys in a zone. And I said, you're full of it. And
Yeah.
I honestly said that. And I was laughing as I was saying that because, again, I had to explain to him, I was like, look, please, I don't mean any disrespect, but you got to understand, I just walked away from the game of golf 2 years ago over this very thing. And I understand that it worked for speed skating, but I still don't believe you. And at that point, he gets out his phone and he starts pulling out these text messages and he's got these screenshots and he's showing me one after another: national record holder, national champion, world team or world champion. And then no one's an Olympic medalist. And they're all saying the same thing: custom trigger, custom trigger, custom trigger. And I said, Shannon, okay, I'm convinced it works for speed skating, but there's no way it's going to work for the game of golf. Like, you do understand, like, the sport that is the hardest in the world is golf. And I said, there is no way it's going to work for golf, because just like what you were just saying, Michael, like Bob Rotella, all these guys, and I respect them. They do a lot of really good stuff, but all these sports psychologists and all the authors, and even in books outside of the game of golf that I've read over the years, they all have said what flow state or what in the zone looks like, but nobody has ever shown a step-by-step process on how to get there. And I said, Shannon, and this is what I'm explaining back to him. And I said, Shannon, you're telling me that you figured this process out? And he said, yes. I said, I really do not still believe you. But I said, you know what? You got a Hall of Fame resume here as a coach, but I mean, you got something here. And I said, you know what? I'm intrigued enough that I'm going to see if this actually works. I said, here's why I think I'm a prime candidate for this. I said, I haven't touched a club in 2 years. I haven't practiced. I haven't played a single round, nor do I really even have the desire. But you know, this is intriguing enough that I'll tell you what, I'll come on. You show me everything that you've been doing, and we'll see if this applies to golf. And I said, here's how I'm going to do it. I'm not going to practice. I'm not going to go to the warm up on, day of when I play. I'm not going to go to the range. The only thing I'll do is I'll hit a few putts and I'm going straight to the first tee cold turkey. Michael, in 2018, the second half of that year, over about a 6-month time span, I go from a 2.4 index to a plus 1.7 within 6 months. I had 6 out of those 8 rounds under par, and that's where I was able to make that quick of a change in my game just by doing mental reps and everything we teach with psychomuscular training and what he showed me. But I did all that with zero physical practice. And it was at that point where I was like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. Because the last 9-hole round, I shot 4 under and I lipped out 3 birdies. And it was after that round, I go home. We talk about this in the book. And I literally go home. I'm excited. I'm telling my wife, she's cooking dinner. And I said, I'm going back in the game of golf. She's like, are you sure this is a good idea? Like, you're crazy. Like, you understand like how like good we've been doing and, in this career that I was pursuing. I said, but honey, you got to understand, like, this is going to change the game of golf overnight. And she's like, I am not ready to sign up for this. Like, you're going to need to go prove this to some others. And Michael, the first person that I called was a guy that fired me 2 years prior. And we agree to meet. And the next week I show him everything that Shannon was showing me. And the week after, he goes and plays in a Carolinas Golf Association event. It's 1-day event. He shoots 78. And, I'm kind of like somewhat skeptic. And I said, and he texted that to me. I said, what do you think was the difference? And he said, it was everything that you showed me and shared with me last week. I was like, wow, this is cool. Okay, let's go show it to a few other students. And I did. And it was at that point, my wife was like, okay, I can get on board with this. And it has been a fun journey ever since. And, man, it's been rewarding. I mean, there's so many other stories. We can go deeper in all that, but that's kind of a 20,000 foot view and a quick runaround of how we all came about.
Yeah, no, I love the story. I love the full circle moment too of even bringing back the student that struggled. I'm sure he was very excited to shoot that 78 anytime you're breaking 80 in a state event, and especially if you've struggled with the mental game and scoring, that's always felt good. I'm sure it felt good for both of you guys as well, because that's the best part of doing what we do is helping others get over their obstacles. And so the one thing I guess that I wanted to just expand upon a little bit is I know you said you played, was it 6 rounds in 8 months or 8 rounds in 6 months? What was the mental? So I know we're going to go into let me get it right. Psycho neuromuscular training here. You guys are making me work. What kind of like mental routine? Not so much like we'll get into the details, but like what was the time length you were doing off the course? Is this a 10-minute exercise? Is this an hour exercise? Like what were you doing frequency to help you get those results?
That's a great question. And I think this is going to be probably the most important thing for all our listeners. is that this is a system that doesn't necessarily require a whole lot of physical practice. So people that are like time strapped, and again, I'm doing this at the same time while I'm still working in this career that I have been doing, right? And so when I had like, 5 minutes, 10 minutes here and there throughout the day, I literally would just be doing mental reps. And again, we can go deeper into details, but that's all I'm doing. And I'm just rehearsing. Funny enough, I think it's hilarious because, Bob Rotella kind of hits on this, and we're going to go and talk about this too. But like, it's been in the game of golf for many years. And I'll prove this because in chapter 2 of Bob Rotella's book, The Golfer's Mind, Bob Rotella is given a seminar, and this is a make or break moment in his career. Like literally, people are telling Bob, like, if Sam Snead gets up and says you're full of crap, like your career is over. And Bob knew that going into the seminar. What was interesting, after Bob gets done giving his talk, Sam stands up and he says, we need to listen to this young man. Everything he shared is spot on, because when I played my best, and again, him and Tiger are tied with the most all-time PGA Tour wins. I think it's 84. And he said, here's when I was playing my best. I would go to bed the night before. I would envision the perfect round, and I'd get through like hole 11, hole 13, something like that. And I'd fall asleep, get up feeling great, go through everything that I would normally do in my routine, and I'd go and play a great round. And he said that was my biggest key. And we later find out like why things kind of got off track, because he struggled a lot with his like short putts and putting. And what's funny enough, and you look at Bob's most recent book, How Champions Think, he also talks about how Sam revisits mental imagery to go back and fix it, and he gets back on track later in his career. So the interesting thing here is that it does not require a whole lot of time. One of our biggest success stories early on, when we were kind of putting us to work and getting case studies, stuff like that, was LPGA Tour player Sandra Gal. And in 2019, I think it is, she had to take a medical exemption with her wrist injury that she had. And at the time of us meeting her, it was in end of June. And she said, I got 5 exemptions gifted to me from the LPGA Tour. I am only practicing about 15 to 20% of what I was doing before my injury. I don't feel ready to return to competitive golf. And so we have a conversation. We get on a Zoom call like this. We're meeting with her, and we share with her everything that I did in my own personal game. And what was interesting is that she goes out, she's applying it. 2 weeks later, I get an email. She said, I have had a hole in one. I'm making more putts than I've ever had. I'm hitting the ball really amazing. And with all that said, I just signed up for the Scottish and the British Open that's going to take place at the end of July.
Wow.
So here's what's crazy. Fast forward. Again, keep in mind, she's only practicing 15, 20% of what she was doing physically. She goes into the event. This is her first round in over a year, competitive. She shoots 3 under, and she's in a tie for 3rd place in her first competitive round back in over a year off from competition. That's unheard of in professional golf. So that's the cool thing about people that are listening to this right now. If you're like an everyday golfer, you're in that 15, 20 handicap, you only play on the weekends, you're time strapped for work, you can literally take this, supplement it into your routine, and see some major gains in your game.
Gotcha. Okay. That's crazy that it doesn't, that's awesome that it doesn't take a lot of time, because obviously everyone's got families, they got jobs. Golf is already a long activity as it is when you go out and play. Practicing, just kind of adds on to it. So that's great that, less is more sometimes. And there's obviously a lot of studies out there with the importance of visualization and different ways that the mind works and how it can train you even when you're not playing your sport. So Shannon, I'd love for you to kind of take us through what is the trigger and how that really helps you activate the zone, and how you were able to discover it, and then, help us golfers with it.
Yeah. So what's interesting is a lot of people I know right now, there's the doubt meter is going off in everybody's mind. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's blowing up. They're like, oh man, there's no way. But they heard what Bo's story and Sandra Gal and stuff like that. So here's the thing with the trigger. It's kind of like this. I walked Bo through a visualization kind of thing, to where I made his mouth water. And I said, okay, see, the reason why that is happening is because it's conditioned, it's classical conditioning. It goes back to psychology 101 that we've learned with Pavlov's dogs, and where, the light would come. They actually did several different studies with the dogs. It would be a light, it would be a buzzer. One of them was their lab coats when they were walking through. And then food would drop out, and then the dog would eat. And then what they would do is after about, a couple of weeks or whatever, they would either have the light flash or the buzzer or whatnot, but then no food would drop out. But then they would notice that the 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 two things that was going on was, how dogs would do when they get excited to eat. They start jumping around and doing circles or whatnot, but then they start salivating. And that's what the dog was doing. So their body was reacting to the buzzer, not to the food coming out, because there was no food coming out. And so, and with that being said, the other thing too is, how often have we actually been in conversations and we start talking about our favorite dessert? Like, for example, I love going to Cold Stone and eating, their desserts and stuff like that. And then, my mouth's watering right now, right? And so that it's because it's been conditioned. And so what I did was, all right, okay, let's package this and let's figure out how to do it, and actually put a trigger in the beginning and then add it, because we use kinesthetic mental imagery with a trigger. And so if we start doing the trigger, but let's add emotion, because the kinesthetic mental imagery actually adds emotion to it. A lot of people don't realize that. They think, oh, it's just mental imagery and stuff like that. So the way I say it, the way I look at it is, when it comes to mental imagery, we got to have 7 senses involved, not 5, but 7. We added 2 more. Your regular 5. Your sight, your smell, your taste, your hearing, your touching, and so on. But then the other most important part is, you got to have your limb movement, your arms. Like, for example, when you're swinging the club, feeling the muscle, everything firing. Okay, but then with kinesthetic mental imagery, you add emotion to it, because emotion can get you dialed in very, very much. For example, if I was scared, I'm not going to be dialed in on a certain target, right? But if I'm going at like an aggressive calmness, for example, I'm just using that example, like, let's say a sniper, that sniper thing where they're just looking and they're just aggressively calm. Or I love Bo. Bo is like bull seeing red, that locked in on the target like that, where your target feels like it's a magnet going in there. And so what we did was, we just said, all right, let's do that. Let's put those 3 I'm putting these 3 together when I did it. And you have to be real. And a lot of your top end athletes, you don't find this out until after they retired, that they've done it. The Tony Gonzalez, he's in the Hall of Fame. He comes out, with his and talks in depth about what he would do with mental imagery and stuff like that, and the amount of detail that they're doing. And what I mean is like, let's say, all right, if I tell everybody, hey, envision doing a chip shot onto the green, well, did you feel the wind? Is there wind? Is it hot outside? What does the weather feel like? Can you see the dimples on the ball? Can you hear the club swing through the air before you hit it, and then hear the smack of the ball, and then it landing on the everything, making it as real as possible. And we put those together, and with the trigger, and then like using some emotionally backing on there, and then going in. So then what happens is, when you do your trigger, you start getting more dialed in and more focused. And so,
this is just to clarify too. This is like something you'll do before the shot. This is like part of your pre-shot routine, basically, or that's
that's like getting okay. So it's like this. It's like, let's say you're doing a swing change.
Okay. Yep. Currently working on one. So give it to me.
You practice your swing change on the course or on the range?
On the range.
Absolutely. That's the key. You don't wait to get on the course because it's too late. You got to get your mental reps away. And so that's like, you're getting those mental reps in away from the course. And that's what Bo was doing. That's what Sandra was doing. And so, matter of fact, when I say so real, I'm going to make it surreal for everybody else. And that is this. When we were talking with Sandra, she said this. She said, Shannon, Bo, I think I'm going to stop doing my mental imagery because my wrist hurts when I'm doing it. What? It's because your brain cannot understand cannot determine whether it's real or not if the mental imagery is real, because it is firing our motor sensory part of the brain. And what's happening is, there's also been numerous case studies that have been done with EMG and putting up things where they're actually seeing that your muscle is actually firing. It's not moving, but they're firing. And that was what was going on with her. And Bo and I, when she said that, we started laughing. We're like, no, 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 don't stop. Keep doing it. That's what you want to do. Because there's even case studies done on mental imagery about rehab and strength gains and all that other stuff too. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's one thing too. It's like visualization works in all different aspects, and I think that that's one thing I've always kind of been a little, I guess confused maybe is the word, because it's like it's hard for me to sit in a room and imagine just like me playing great golf. Like, and when you said to have different, movement patterns in there and using all your senses, that makes a little more sense to me, because obviously, like you said, the brain doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's imagined. And so if you have as many senses and then almost that movement, which for golfers makes a lot of sense. So that makes that when I read that part and you just elaborated on that was where I was like, okay, I could see that working. Because for me, and I'm sure a lot of people that really just struggle to, calm the mind sometimes, and you got so much going on, it's hard to just sit there and do it. But if you almost have a little bit of movement to it and you have all those senses, it seems like that's really getting your brain on board. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, that too. And then let's take it up a notch. When you hear people talking about mental imagery, what do they say they do it? Well, I'm laying down in my bed, lights are
Mm-hmm.
turned off. I don't have no
Yeah.
distractions.
Mm-hmm.
For me, that's like elementary. That's like preschool level of mental imagery. That's
Okay.
easy. Got to the point to where I just started up in the level of distraction and doing my mental imagery where I was walking. I could walk through a mall with my
Mm-hmm.
eyes open, do mental imagery. Okay, what is that doing first and foremost? Number one, it's teaching my body and brain how to get extremely focused no matter what's going on around me, right? And so then what happens was I could feel my muscles firing, like twitching, like there was tenants that was going on when I was doing them. And so let's just add that kind of to it, to let's say, all right, let's take it from the beginner's level to like the pro level. That's what I was doing.
Okay. And so, Bo, when you were doing yours, when you weren't able to practice and you're still working at your job and then you're still going out and playing really good, what were you spending your time mentally thinking about or rehearsing for this neuromuscular training? Were you thinking about the rounds, your swing? Was it a certain area of your game that held you back? And what was it, I guess, that you were working on off the course?
No, it's a fantastic question. And for me, what I did was pretty much, I guess you'd say, very basic. And I think that's great for everybody that's listening here. I kind of followed the same approach that Sam Snee did. I would just see myself playing. And to kind of put this in a more practical light for everybody, I'll explain how it looked for me. So I'll kind of walk everybody through this. So for me, I would literally see myself behind the ball. I'm standing on hole 1 tee. I'm using my home course. And I would recommend everybody that starts off with this, use your home course because you're so familiar with it. It's easier to kind of get the details. And so for me, I can literally see myself on hole 1. I can see the little pond over here to the left. I can see the tall grass that's kind of right on the water's edge. I can see the townhomes right now going down the left-hand side. And my eyes are open. I can describe every detail. The other thing is I can see people coming up on number 9, the 2 carts that are coming up on the right side of the fairway. I can see where the trees split hole 9 and hole number 1. I can see where the top of the fairway and a crease going down the slope. And then the other thing is I can see my playing partners over here to the right-hand side on, the tee box. And so I am that detailed with everything that's going on around me. Now, that doesn't mean that it's going to be a really long process. I'm just, for you guys, explaining all the details that I am putting into this. Okay.
And are you thinking like 9 or 18 holes? Are you going through like shot by shot? Or are you just thinking of a specific shot?
Yeah, I'm going shot by shot. So I'm literally playing. And the way that we describe it and the way I did it was in the very beginning when I was doing this, I would literally just start behind the ball. I got all that details in place, right? And then I'm just doing like what we learned from Vision 54, think box, play box, right? And the biggest thing that I would do is I'd stand behind, I'd see the shot that I want to hit, and then I basically teleport. I'm not seeing myself walk to the ball. I'm basically just teleporting. So I'm going straight from behind the ball, commit to the shot that I want to hit, which is a slight draw right over at this tall tree in the background that behind the green. And you can just see the top half of it when you over the slope or the hill or whatever. But that's my start line for this hole. And so I would see that and I commit to it. Then I'm teleporting immediately over the ball. And when I'm over the ball, that's when I'm taking, again, I'm physically doing this. So I'm sitting here in a chair and I'm literally doing this right now over the ball. I'm looking, second look. And then for me, I got my custom trigger, which is a waggle with my hands. So I'm waggling the club a little bit, and then I'm doing a deep breath. And then I'm doing one long last look. Again, like Shannon talked about, the emotion, that's my bull, seeing red intensity that's channeled through that last look. And that's me locking in on my target. And then as soon as I bring my eyes back at that point, we talk about this and we go in depth on this, shadow golf. But at this point, when I was first starting out, I'm just seeing myself mentally taking a swing and hitting the shot out of my first person view. So I'm literally looking at everything out of my eyes and seeing everything down here. So I'm literally just mentally seeing the ball fly as it exits. And then at that point, I'm going immediately, like teleporting to the second shot. So right then, I'm in the middle of the fairway. Again, I start behind the ball, commit to the shot that I want to hit. Today's pin location, there is no bunker around the green. There's a slight upslope, very planar from top to back. Back to front. And pin location today is about 10 feet on and about 2 feet to the right. So it's front center. And at this point, I see where it is. I see the shot I want to hit, which is a slight fade. That's my shot shape. And then I'm just committing to that. Again, I teleport immediately over the ball. And at that point, I got a pitching wedge in hand. So it's 142 yards. Basically waggle my hands. Last look. And then mentally, I'm seeing myself hit the shot. And so I'm doing that for every shot that I'm playing throughout the round. That's what I did in the very beginning when Shannon showed me this. And that's what I was doing for when I actually was going my mental reps throughout the day when I had, downtime.
Thank you for clarifying that.
That's make it a little bit. I want to make it real simple for people to understand. You have to know the scene that you're getting ready to do your mental imagery before you do your mental imagery. And that's what he was talking about. It took him a long time to explain it, but literally it's the scene that's going on in your head. Once you get that, like even if you write it down, you got to know what you're working on. And so that's what he's doing. He already had the scene in his head. And there's actually been studies that's come out from Stanford University about mental imagery and visualization that it should take no longer than 20 seconds at the most. Okay, how long does it take to do your swing? That's what you want to do. So when you go down and when you address the ball, that's the scene. You already know the scene that you're doing. You're doing mental imagery, all that of you addressing the ball and just hitting the ball. And they say you want to at least do to have any kind of major change in your brain to get things going and learning the process and the movements and get stuff dialed in. Said no less than 50 reps per session, for example. At least 3 to 5 times a week. And so that's where they've seen the biggest gains when it comes to using mental imagery and how to do it. So that just, that was just kind of to clarify.
Yeah, no, that's really good. I had that actually written down here. I had 3 to 5 days a week, 50 reps. You said 10 to 20 seconds. So that's perfect. Okay. So that makes a lot of sense to me because I'm always like visualization, all the data, all the stuff I read, it always makes sense, but I've never, hypnosis makes sense because I can just sit there and like kind of drift off, get the subconscious working, have a little power nap with a purpose, how I like to call it. But visualization has always been tough for me because it's like, how do I visualize and be stationary? So that makes a lot more sense to be like imagining your swing, imagining the putt, the chip, and putting in those mental reps. So thank you guys for clarifying that. Because again, everybody talks about visualization from LeBron to, basketball, football, baseball, golf, like everybody talks about it. But I still think a lot of questions. So I think you guys did a really good job clarifying that. The next topic that I really liked in the book was the inner coach versus the inner critic. So I want to read this quote because I really like this one. It says, be mindful that the battle between the inner critic and the inner coach is ongoing. Your mind is the battleground, and it is crucial to remain vigilant and not let your guard down. Just as a lion seeks to devour its prey, the inner critic prowls, seeking to undermine your confidence and hinder your progress. I liked that quote. Whoever wrote that one, good job. You guys know it's really good because every golfer can relate. You're standing over a shot and it's like, don't hit it there. Or you get up and you hit a terrible shot and you're like, damn it, you suck. And you start talking, just down to yourself. Every golfer knows the inner coach, the inner critic. So I guess my question is, how do we differentiate the two and how do we make sure the coach is helping us more than the critic's hurting us?
So first and foremost, the reason why we call it the inner coach and the inner critic is this. It's basically positive and negative what's going on in your mind. The positive is always going to be encouraging, is always going to be, it could be critiqueful, but there's a positive vibe that's going on with it. And the negative is one where we tend to, get downplay or berate ourselves or anything like that. And so the reason why we did that is if you give those two a name, you recognize it a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
The awareness comes up of, okay, what happens is it's like a mental alarm clock that goes off in your brain when you're out on the golf course. Okay, that's the inner critic. I don't need to do that. So then what
Mm-hmm.
happens is, here's the thing. I ask people, I ask everybody this, can we control our negative thoughts? Some will say, yeah, but you
No
can't
way.
control negative thoughts. Otherwise, you
Yeah.
wouldn't have them,
Right.
right?
Negativity bias. We are hardwired for negativity.
Oh, absolutely. Like, you three putt it, or no, let's say you four putt it on the last hole and somebody comes up to you after that. Oh, and you played a really good round. You shot like one of your best scores. He goes, man, my putting was way off today. I'm
Oh
like, what?
yeah.
It's
Yep.
the negative bias that we go into. And so what
Mm-hmm.
we do is, can we stop those negative thoughts? No. It's how we react to those negative thoughts
Mm-hmm.
that is the game changer, which can slowly stop that negative thought from coming back.
Mm-hmm.
And not just that, it has less of an impact on our life. Here's the thing. What we're talking about right now is not just golf. It's in personal life. It's in everything. We can apply this to business. We can apply this to our relationship, to our wife, to our husbands, or anything, when it comes to that, to how to reframe that and get back on the positivity. So, but I thought that was very important that we need to give this a name. So
Mm-hmm.
it becomes that a mental alarm clock. Because what we're doing, we just totally raised our awareness to what was happening to where
Mm-hmm.
we've got a weapon that we can combat with.
Yeah, that's so key. Like I wrote down here some of the different methods you talked about to, beat the inner critic or, overcome him, if you will. And like the first one you wrote was practice self-awareness. And I think that's like the biggest thing I feel like I've learned in entrepreneurship and golf is just being self-aware. Obviously with golf, you can track your stats and, that's awareness is right there, but it's the mental stuff. It's like, am I saying negative things to myself? And I always tell like students I work with, I'm like, figure out what your habit is that you don't like. Maybe you throw clubs, maybe you cuss, maybe you punch the steering wheel. I might have done that before. It's like figure out what your bad thing is, and then you can identify it, and then you can track it, and then you become aware of it. A lot of times people have no idea how negative their self-talk is, how bad of habits they have because they haven't identified it, they haven't named it, they haven't become aware of it. So I like that you said practice self-awareness. I think that's key. What are some of the other ways? I have them written down here if you want to elaborate maybe on reframing or embracing failure. I think that was a really good one because we're going to fail a lot more than we succeed in golf.
Yeah, it's so important because when we talk about that self-awareness and how we practice that in our games, I'll tell you one of the biggest game changers for our clients and those that implement everything that we teach is this importance of journaling, like throughout your rounds. I can't tell you and stress how important that is because when it comes to, again, recognizing the inner coach, inner critic, a lot of times people are not aware because they're not paying attention or they're in such a autopilot behavior in this negative habit loop that they're not even sure of until someone actually points it out that's coming from a third party perspective, right?
Yeah.
And so it's at that point where when we coach our clients, we all have a phone that follows us everywhere we go. You can go into the Notes app. And one of the things that you can do that is super powerful is to actually make notes throughout the round. And I'll tell you what's interesting is that when we start doing that and practicing that, you'll start seeing some patterns for success, and then patterns for, not so much the direction that you want to play or, move in your game. And so when we start seeing these patterns in our clients' games, we'll start uncovering, hey, it's a really tough shot. I tend to kind of question myself. And again, we talk about this in overcoming competition anxiety, how to mind map and, get to the heart of certain negative habit loops. But what's interesting is we'll start seeing patterns when people start getting to a tough shot. They'll go into the shot. They're, kind of fearful. And then we find that their old behavior is to get really tense. And so they're going in trying to control the shot. And that's the reward value is they feel like they got some control over the situation. And then what's interesting is that when we ask them point blank, black and white, what's your success rate when you actually do this in autopilot behavior? They may come back and tell us that it's only 20%. So then you got to come to grips with, okay, what's the definition of insanity? You want to keep doing the same thing over and over again and, trying to expect a different result? And the answer right now is no, I don't want to keep doing this because I only have a 20% success rate, which means I'm only hitting 2 out of 10 shots when I do this successful. And then we get to, at that point, and we walk people through how to do this, how to break that, move in a different direction. But now we brought light to the situation. And again, it's true for like when we see ourselves negatively berating ourselves. When we miss a 3-foot putt, that's one we can all relate to, right?
Yes.
How often have we found that when we miss a short putt, that it carries over into the next shot on the next tee, and then we double or triple bogey the next hole, right? And then we're so pissed off, and we're still dwelling on that short putt we missed, and then it's 4 holes later, and we're still dwelling and thinking about it. And at this point, our round is so far gone, we cannot get it out of our minds on that short putt. And so this is why when you journal, you can uncover that and see where the root of it is. And then the beautiful thing is now to prevent those blow up holes and to get the big numbers off the scorecard. Again, Scott Foss is a really good friend of mine. I love when he shows data, the difference between a guy that shoots 95 and a guy that shoots 78. The difference is the guy that shoots 78 is only making 1 birdie on average in comparison to the guy that shoots 95. And then you're like, what in the world? How's he got that big of a score gap? Well, the answer is he's keeping the big numbers off the scorecard. Okay. Yeah. How do we keep the big numbers off the scorecard? It's through journaling. It's paying attention to like what's going on mentally, internally. And then when we get to a point where we miss those short putts, we just go, you know what? It's life. Just like life, just golf. And at that point, it is more deeper than that. But here's the beautiful thing. We have tools where we can do a ball reset. We can completely release that shot. And then we can even do some expert or advanced breathing techniques, which we call the king of breathing techniques, which is a physiological sigh, bring you back to the present moment where you again completely flush that last shot. And then you're able to go to the next tee and actually hit a really good shot or put yourself in a really good chance to actually play some really good golf after missing a short putt like that. And again, a lot of these things, people are playing golf in red light states. And again, we know from neuroscience in the last few years, to play your best golf, it's always going to be in a green light state. Brian Kane was one of the first ones that kind of talked about these signal light states. And we talk in deep depth on that in the book as well. But when we start recognizing our optimal state, we can show you how to get there faster, and even after bad shots, how to get back to that state. And again, we haven't really touched on this yet, but the answer to flow state, what people are looking for, when people talk about in the zone, we know from science in the last few years, that means a player is playing with very little conscious thought activity. They have what's called low theta and low alpha wave brainwave activity, which means there's very little conscious thought happening. All that simply means is, well, you're going to play your best golf when you're playing caveman golf. What does that look like? It looks like this: see target, see ball, hit ball. When you play your worst, you're thinking about, hey, I need to get P2. I need to change my wrist position, get my wrist flexion, my right wrist at 32 degrees. I need to make sure I get my elbow position at this point in P4. And then I need to make sure that I transition and get my weight all the way to my left side at 92%. Good luck playing golf. You will never hear a team, champion or any person in that matter, any different, all the sports out there ever say, yeah, like you mentioned LeBron James. I don't think I've ever heard LeBron James after, dropping 50 some points in a game say, yeah, I had my elbow position at 92 degrees. And then I had my hand placed and I had about 32% pressure when I was applying that shot. No. What do you hear him say? I saw the angle and the arc of that ball going into the hole.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you see. And
I know, man. I was excited you went into caveman golf. I want to talk about that too, but there's so much you just said there that there's like 3 big takeaways that everyone listening needs to remind themselves of. Because I've had Scott on the podcast. He's going to be back on. Well, he was already recorded. And the biggest thing, like you said, bogeys. It's all about making fewer bogeys more than it is making more birdies. I think that's key. Also, expectation management is also very important. Like you said, like understanding that you are going to miss some short putts, not a lot, but it is part of it. And playing in that green light zone. I had Dr. Izzy Justice of Jira Golf on last year, and he talked about the mental toll of missing a short putt is the highest. That's why going to that next tee box is really hard, because your mind is really firing and you're in that red or yellow state. And so, having some tools like you talked about, breathing and different things can really make a big difference. And so I'm glad you guys, have a lot of different methods, obviously, that you go through in the book. And like you said, the last part too was caveman golf. I wrote down that quote too, because I really like that. And it was talking about how the routine taking over is more about being athletic, right? For some reason, golf is like the one sport where we only think about technique. But like baseball players, football, like Tom Brady is not thinking about his arm position when he was winning Super Bowls. Like we always, though, have this weird thing with golfers where we try and have the perfect technique. And so that's why I talk about it in my book a lot. I try and talk about it on Instagram and social media and the podcast is like, get away from so much technique. You're never going to play your best golf. Tiger or Jordan Spieth or whoever's winning these events afterwards, like they're not talking about their positions that they were in. They're thinking about targets, routines, and stuff like that. So I'm so glad you said all those, but there's so many great principles and takeaways there. And I know one of the solutions that you guys talked about was the power talk and affirmations too. And those are super helpful. So I was wondering, when should be the best time to use those? Is that before the round, during the round, after the round? Just because I know that there's obviously a lot of power with the words you speak to yourself.
Yes.
Love it.
That's the answer. Before,
Yeah.
after, during, everything, the build up. Because here's the thing, and I want to kind of get back to something and then go into it, and that is this. First and foremost, golf is a game of mistakes. If we realize that, then we can accept the shot before we even hit it. We're not even going into an outcome orientation or anything like that. That's how we get back to caveman golf, is knowing that, okay, golf is a game of mistakes. A prime example, anybody that's been in their prime, you name anybody, Tiger, anybody, they can never hit the ball off the tee to the very same spot. They could try all day. They're never going to hit the ball the same spot. A game of mistakes. It might be a millimeter. It might be this. It might be that. But that'll help us to allow us to do that. So then we can't have fear of failure either because of that. Because if I say this into a group of people, I'll say we have winners and we have learners, not losers. Because here's the thing. The master has failed more times than the beginners even tried. So it's not about failure. It's the one that can come back from it and learn from it and gain from that. And so I think that's extremely important when we're talking about this. It is getting back to that caveman golf mentality and just keeping it simple and that play. Mm-hmm. So with power talk, what happens is words with biofeedback equipment and stuff like that, it can raise your heart rate. It can lower your heart rate. It can uplift blood vessels. It can actually create endorphins in your body. Laughter can change your mood. For example, if you get angry, I dare you to start laughing and see if you can stay angry. It's not going to happen. It can't happen. So we can use that as a weapon in our tool belt after a bad shot. For example, laughing about it. And change, knowing that we can go into the next shot. And so what happens is when we start creating, I'll give you an example. I was on a bike ride with a friend of mine. And so one of my power talk statements is for cycling is the longer I go, the stronger I get. Adversity is my advantage. Okay. And even in golf, you can say the longer I go, let's say you're playing 36 holes. Okay. The better I get. See, right. So then what happens is the fatigue and everything like that doesn't set in. Our perceived rate of exertion stays the same, but our output is even higher. Like, what in the world is he talking about? So in cycling, I'm related to cycling, then I'm going to bring it back to golf. Okay. I was doing a 40-mile bike ride. 5 miles in, I noticed that I was working a lot harder. Something wasn't going right with my bike. I didn't know what was going on. I was putting out a lot more watts, a lot more power to get going. Get to a store, I'm checking my bike over, and my front brake has been rubbing the whole time. Immediately, I'm like, oh, I didn't think, man, this is going to suck, And so what I did was I embraced the suck, and I started going back to, because I've been doing this before I even got on the bike. Adversity is my advantage. The longer I go, the stronger I get. The harder it gets, the harder I get. I've got this. I can do another 10 seconds. I can do it. So then my average speed was like 18 miles an hour at that point. So we ended up finishing the bike ride. There was only 2 of us. We ended up, and I was leading the whole time. Ended up finishing the bike ride with almost a 21 mile an hour average. It went that up. My rate of perceived exertion was the same, but my power output was longer. Now, how do we apply that to golf? So think about that. Because of power talk, let's say you struggle the last, because of the stress or whatever, like holes 15 through 18, finishing the round. Mm-hmm. Or let's say you're a tour player and you're struggling the third day of going into it because of the pressure and because of the things that are there. Again, power, your power talk. We don't call it positive self talk. I like to call it power talk because, like what I was saying before.
I was going to say, I actually like that. I wrote that down. I like that because self talk is like a lot of people, for men especially, sounds too woo woo and they don't want to do it. But power talk, everybody wants to be in power. So I like that you guys renamed that.
Yeah, and what you're doing is you are giving yourself power and permission to perform at a higher level. And so what happens is when you start doing that and you start putting these in there, then what happens is you start believing it too.
Mm-hmm.
Your faith is increased in your belief system to where you can actually perform at a higher level because you start believing it. I mean, we talked about it. Psychologists will tell you everybody's, well, as a young age, for example, as a kid, if you grew up in a home or a place where there was negative that was always coming in, what happens is you're going to have a lower self-esteem later in life, right?
Right.
So here's an interesting truth that came out as far as positivity and negativity that came out of Harvard University, and that is this. If you speak positive, it has a 10% more likely of a chance it'll affect you some way, somehow. However, let's just go by what science is saying. If you speak negative, it has a 40 to 70% chance of some way to affect you some way, somehow. So why not let's just eliminate the negative behavior, embrace the positive behavior so that it can affect us some way, somehow. And again, for us, again, believing in the way we can perform our best when it matters the most and start doing the power talk statements going in.
Yeah, that's so key. I wrote that down. 40 to 70 times more influential with that, where that negative talk can be. So yeah, you got to be super careful with your words. And I like power talk. I think that's really good. And you kind of even mentioned there's some good mantras in the book there and statements people can take away. One of the last things that I wanted to talk about that I loved, and it was breaking the thermostat, because there's so many golfers that want to break 90, want to break 80, want to break par for the first time, right? And it's key. Like, and to me, when I read the thermostat, I instantly just thought of self-image. And you guys mentioned Ed Milet in the book. He's a big fan of mine. I mean, I love his stuff. He's not a big fan of mine yet, sorry, but I'm a big fan of his. And I really like when he talked, when I was, I started entrepreneurship 2017. I had like no money. I was just like left a corporate sales job. My self-image went to shit because I had no idea who I was, what I was doing. I was like, I just want to pursue professional golf. I want to try and build a business, but I definitely felt like my self-image was kind of holding me back. And when he referenced it to a thermostat, I think that was really good. And I think that the same thing happens with golfers, right? They're thinking, hey, I'm a 90 shooter, I'm an 80 shooter. And all of a sudden you're playing good. And then it's like, whoa, we're playing way too good here. And our self-image, our subconscious, like it likes to pull us right back. And so we have to learn how to break the thermostat and shatter it so we can obviously hit our scoring goals, whether that's breaking 90, breaking 80, breaking par, shooting in the 60s, winning tournaments. Like we have to learn how to break the thermostat. One of my favorite chapters in the book. So what are some tools that you guys recommend for golfers that are trying to reach new plateaus and break that thermostat?
Yeah. So for me personally, that was my biggest issue as a junior golfer. And it kind of tied in, again, my identity of who I saw I was. And it's the same for everybody that's on here. The reason why you keep shooting the same scores over and over and over again is because it directly affects and relates to how you see yourself as a player. So let me share a quick story to kind of give you more context. There was a Tom Bailu, I think is how you say his name.
Tom is the man.
Theory.
Yeah. Love that guy. I got a chance to go to his house and in that studio, man. That guy's
that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's really cool. So he had Trevor, I think it's Moad, his name, but again, one of the big reasons why Alabama has done so well, he was their sports psychologist many years that they were dominating in the game in football. But here's the thing. He was sharing a story on Tom's show where his dad had just gotten back from a Toastmasters conference. And his dad was sharing this with him. And he said, this is what the speaker just shared today. He said, there was a student that took let's just put it this way. He was really bad in school. He was hanging around the wrong kids. He was partying, doing all the things in high school that obviously would line up to him having like C, D's, and F's, right? And so he's a junior, and he's at that time, you got to take a SAT. So he goes and takes the SAT. Well, come to find out, A few weeks later, he gets a score result, and his score result is a 1480 out of like 1600 back then. Dang smart, right? That's what,
Wicked smart, some might say.
And here's the thing: his mom's like, "Son, did you cheat?" And he's like, I tried. I honestly, I was really trying, but the seats are so far apart, I couldn't." And so they're like, "Wow, okay. Well, then here's what ends up happening." His teachers were like, "Well, maybe we missed a boat. We need to really start pouring into him." And then he actually starts sitting in the front of the class. He cuts the friends that weren't serving him, and he starts doing all the behaviors that would line up with a 1480 student. Fast forward, he goes to community college, and then he transfers from there. After he gets his GPA up, he goes to an Ivy League school, leaves Ivy League school, goes on and becomes, I think, the CEO or founder of one of the most successful companies, magazine companies in the world. Okay. 13 years go by. He gets a letter in the mail, and he puts it on the counter, doesn't open it for like a couple of days. And then his wife's like, "Are you going to open this letter?" The letter is from the SAT editorial board or something like that. Finally, he opens the letter and he reads it, and it says, periodically every few years, we will review our test taking policies and all that. And unfortunately, we come to find that you were one of 12 students that were sent the wrong SAT score. The SAT score that you actually got was a 740.
That's crazy.
And here's the interesting thing about this, and I'm going to bring it all home here. Wait a second. This kid is now the executive or founder of one of the most successful magazine companies in the world. But here's the big key and the big hit home of all this is that he walked out. Now, the funny thing is he was actually a 740 student at the time, but he walked and behaved like a 1480 student in his day-to-day activity. And then because his behaviors lined up with that, he then correlated to the success that he ultimately achieved. Now, why does this matter to golf? Because if you constantly see yourself as an 85 to 90, score, then when you go out and you play the front side and you shoot 37, why are you surprised that you go to the backside and you shoot 46, 47? Mm-hmm. And the reason why that's always happening is because you are constantly seeing yourself as the 85 to 90 golfer. Mm-hmm. Or it could be vice versa. You blow up on the front side. But then isn't it funny that you like lock in and you really dial in and you get real focused and then you have 6 or 38 on the back?
I'm laughing because it's happened to me so many times.
We can all relate.
Yeah. So act as if. I think that's always a good thing in golf and life. Act as if the person you want to be, the body you want to have, the golf game you want to have. Is there anything else that you guys, I know there's a few other things I wrote down here. The biggest thing I wrote down, I guess, was to take the process over the outcome, right? We can't be worrying about breaking that scoring plateau. We have to stick to the process. Shannon, would you like to elaborate on anything else for the thermostat? 'Cause I feel like that's a big one for our audience.
Yeah. So the other thing, a practical example on how to break your thermostat would be like we talked about mental imagery. Why not do mental imagery and physically write down your score? So then you're used to seeing that score on the scorecard. You're changing that behavior.
I meant to tell you, I loved that. When I read that part, I was like, damn, I never thought of that. I got all these empty scorecards laying around. They're going to have 65s in them after this interview. No, I really like that. So yes.
Absolutely. Because here's the thing. When you're playing well, do you feel different?
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel when you're playing bad?
Yeah.
Well, why do we feel that way? Because we conditioned ourselves. So let's take that conditioning and, where it can actually serve us by power talk, again, power talk. This is normal. What?
Yeah.
I was walking with one of our tour players and we were going, and she hits a phenomenal shot after a bad shot. Right. And she looked at me and goes, "That's normal." I said, "You're right. That's normal." Because here's the thing. What makes highlight reels? Is it the bad shots or the good shots?
Only the good ones.
Usually it's the one that's coming from the bad shot that makes the highlight reel. So then that's another way how you shift your thing is be like, oh, this is highlight reel. You can even say one of your power talk trees means birdies. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
And kind of shift that. But again, if you relentlessly pursue your process, that is going to be the game changer. What is your process? Your pre-shot routine keeps you in the now. How do you win? Win is an acronym of what's important now. That puts you back into the now And if you relentlessly pursue your process, then you're going to do it. Again, a quote from the Navy SEALs is this: relentless fundamental execution under extreme stress. And that's how you do it. You keeps you in the now, focus on your process, because your process here, your process will take care of the score.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because then if you get, again, like what we're talking about, if you start off, if you start off real good, it feels different, and it's normal. So then if you continually pursue that process, it's going to be normal even later on in the round versus, wow, I can't wait to tell, mom and dad that I'm going to shoot my best, my lowest round this round. And then all of a sudden they're like double, triple bogey, bogey, bogey. They're on the bogey train.
Oh,
Let's
yeah.
get in it and start, creating those things to where the process is that we relentlessly pursue it.
Man, I like that. I hadn't heard that. I've read a lot of golf books and definitely tried all kinds of stuff myself, but I like this the act as if and the scorecard trick. I think that's really cool. Pair that with mental imagery, and that's the cool thing with mental imagery. Like you talked about it with the wrist injury, it can help. It can help with golf. It can help with overcoming plateaus. Like there's just so much cool stuff, man. You guys are awesome. I'm really enjoying this. Before getting into the last question and love for you guys to share more about the book and where people can find you and follow you up.
Yeah, absolutely. So anybody that, wants to check out the book, you can go to endofzonesecrets.com. We have it there. There's some really cool things that we're offering as kind of like a package gift deal. You will get a signed copy from us. And again, if you want to go through Amazon, and you can do that, either or is fine. And, it's going to be a game changer, because a lot of stuff that's in our books, we've had so many people over the years and here recently, tell us that they've read and exhausted all the mental books out there, but this is something that is just more practical and kind of to the point. And that's by design, because a lot of it is what I wished I had handed to me when I was in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I want to bring this full circle, because I know we're getting ready to go and I know that you're busy, and that is this. We've heard all the people say it and we believe it, but what are we going to do about it? Because thoughts determine what we want, actions determine what we get. And if what everybody is saying true, that golf is a game of mental, or is 90% mental and 10% physical, why are we spending 100% of the time on only 10% of the game? Let's kind of match that up and kind of maybe not balance it out totally where you're doing 50% mental and 50% physical, because that's going to be kind of impossible, because hey, it's going to take 4 hours to play a round of golf, right?
Right.
Yeah, doing 4 hours of mental imagery is just not going to work, and you don't even have to do that. You can cut it in half. So let's get some time. Let's go to the gym. Let's go to our mental gym, get some reps in, and get this and get full buy-in, because actions will determine what you get. And then again, you got to do it away from the course before to even apply, to go onto the course so that you can perform your best when it matters the most, and reframe that brain that's going on of, I can't do that. Well, you just proved it with our behaviors. How does a champion behave? How do they do it? Coming up to a putt and for example, when we hear don't hit it in the water, well, let's say, what if you're a tour champion, right? Do you back off from that, knowing that that's $1 million putt or a chip shot that's going in? Of course you would back off of it. That's how a champion would react to it. That's how they would go in, a tour champion. So just some little bit nuggets to kind of finish up on there.
Yeah. Are you guys on social media? Is there a specific channel to follow you?
Yeah, you can find us on Instagram. We're not spending a whole lot of time there because we've been channeling all the energy into the book, and then also into this new project we've been working on. Because again, our mission is to help 100,000 golfers shoot their lifetime low rounds, and so that's where most of our energy is. But you can find us, Watson, Shannon Shuskey on Instagram.
Okay. Yeah, I'll make sure to link to everything down in the show notes. And for my last question too, I want to talk a little bit about competition, because I know you guys kind of end the book there, and a lot of my listeners are getting into their first club championship, maybe their first state event. And I know that that's a whole other beast, right? Tournament golf is very different than a casual round with your buddies. So I'd like each of you, if you could, to just give maybe one tip to help players. It could be mental, it could be anything you guys really want from the book to help players have a little bit less stress or pressure, or however you want to call it, heading into some of those first events, maybe of the year, or maybe their first event ever.
Yeah, we'll tag team this. I'll let Bo will do the final punch for the knockout, and that is this. I've done a lot of numerous competitions. I've worked with people that would literally have. One of my clients was on the world team and on the Pan American team in speed skating, and literally her anxiety got so bad she would watch a video of herself and almost have a panic attack. Let that sink in. Anxiety is a real issue. Okay. Nervousness is a real issue. So let's talk about that real quick. What is symptoms of nervousness? Okay. It's, sweaty palms. And if it's the night before the tournament, what do you get? What's going on? You got butterflies in the stomach. You have visions of the future. What could happen? What might happen? All this stuff is going on, elevated heart rate and stuff like that. Right. Now let's shift our focus on that. What is it like? I had some really good Christmases growing up. What was it like on Christmas Eve? For me, it was the same thing. I had butterflies in my stomach, claiming hands, visions of the future. What am I going to get tomorrow? What am I going to get? And so what happens is if we can reframe it, because it's the same exact stimulus, if we reframe that to exciting, that's going to be the game changer. So I would suggest anybody, you got a club championship coming up, you got a tour coming up, or even this, you've got somebody that might be a scratch golfer and you might be shooting 90 and you're scared to play with them.
Yeah.
What you do is you reframe that. This is exciting. I can't wait to do it. I'm going to show up because it's going to give me an opportunity for me to play my best when it matters the most. And you start reframing it. You start saying that over and over again, that this is exciting. Anytime you think about it, anytime you do mental imagery, your power talk, every single time you come up, you verbally say it out loud. This is exciting. This is exciting. I guarantee you it's going to change, and you're going to have a shift where, for example, when I would step up to the line, there was no nerves. Now, getting back to the same example of the young lady that I was talking about, she went to a competition that was in Colombia. And then she went to a competition that she did in France and Germany. And her mom told me this. I don't even recognize her. She's on the starting line dancing around, and her numbers, her speed and everything like that was even better than it was before. Why? She reframed everything to where she was going to be that walking into what she was created to do, her true identity. And both.
So I will say this. Here's the bombshell for those that really want to take their game to the next level and they want to compete and play at a very high level. The answer is kinesthetic mental imagery. And again, let me kind of bring this full circle. When you look at Jack Nicklaus, you look at Sam Snead, you look at Tiger Woods, you look at Phil Mickelson, you look at Ben Hogan, and you look at Mickey Wright on the LPGA Tour side. Let me do this really quick. Who was Jack Nicklaus's coach? His first coach, Jack Grout. Who was Ben Hogan's coach? Henry Pickard. Who was Sam Snead's coach? It was also Henry Pickard. Who was Mickey Wright's coach? Harry Pressler. All right, Harry Pressler, Henry Pickard, and Jack Grout. Who was their mentor? Their mentor was Alex Morrison. Well, who's this Alex Morrison guy? Alex Morrison was the first ever and pretty much the godfather in the game of golf for mental imagery. He was the first one to write the book in 1940, Better Golf Without Practice. The fascinating thing about all that is that they are telling us, and what Sam Snead has shown us, is that to play at a high level, and again, he's tied with Tiger the most all-time PGA Tour wins, his answer was mental imagery. And I'm going to share a quick story about Sam Snead. Sam Snead in 1936, the week before he plays in his first PGA Tour event, everybody's like, man, this young phenom, Sam Snead, we got to go watch him play. The head pro puts on an exhibition match. It's 2 former U.S. amateur champion and then 1 U.S. Open champion playing in this exhibition match. Sam Snead is on the first tee, and there is a massive crowd surrounding this first tee. He is so nervous that he is teeing up the ball with 2 hands. Picture this, like put yourself in this, like his shoes.
Oh, I've had some nervy first tee shots. I don't have to picture it too hard.
All right. So Think about this. He is trying to steady the ball in the tee with two hands. All right, that's like on the verge of panic attack. Let's just call it what it is, right?
Yeah.
He goes behind the ball, and what does he do? He puts to practice what he learned from Alex Morrison. Well, actually, Henry Pickard, who learned it from Alex Morrison. So what does he do? He closes his eyes. He does mental imagery of all of his most successful shots on that same hole. He gets up, gathers himself, hits the shot. The crowd gasps, and he watches the ball flying. And the reason why the crowd gasps is because the ball is flying 20 yards past all three of the guys in the group. And then he hits it another 15 yards further than his most successful drive that he's ever hit on that same hole in the past. Wait a second. How does this guy go from on the verge of a panic attack and trying to steady a ball on the tee to about a minute and a half later to hitting his best drive of his life on this hole? That's the power of mental imagery. And so when it comes to overcoming competition anxiety, we go deep in all that and how to do that. But that would be my biggest thing is leverage that. It'll go a long ways.
Yeah, perfect right there.
Sorry, I was going to say just real quick, and a majority of our clients from mental imagery has actually increased their distance by like 20 yards of not even doing like physical training and stuff like that and accuracy and stuff. So yeah.
That's funny. I'm glad you guys brought that up too about Alex Morrison. I had written that down with Henry, and because I've never read that book because I haven't found it's like $250, $300 if you try and find it. So I gotta invest in it because I'm just curious of what. I mean, this is pre-World War II, and like he had already figured out mental imagery, and obviously his tree of coaching and students is extensive. So yeah, I'm glad you guys brought that up. I think it was a really good ending, and yeah, just really appreciate all you guys are doing for the game and being a part of Wicked Smart Golf.
Absolutely, Michael. Pleasure.